Alright, what is up, everybody? This is Alex once again with another episode of the EOT News Flash. We are back with Sam, as always, or at least for this week and moving forward, henceforth, into eternity. We are back. We are back with our Ikoria limited set review. We are on the black cards. I know you're a fan of black cards because you like to kill things and then bring them back to life. And there's a little bit of that in this color, and we're going to jump right into them. But first, we're going to go over our grading scale because we've got 4 points. 1s are the cards you should never play. Absolute garbage fire. 2s are the ones that your deck will primarily be made of, and you'll see a lot of those in every color that we go through. 3s are your more top-tier removal, more signpost gold uncommons. Doesn't have a hand signal for that. And the 4s are the absolute bombs that you pull into that pull you into a color out of your first pack in draft, or they're your sealed pool. They're the best cards in your deck that will win you games most of the time. We also have S for sideboard cards, the things that you'll bring in to answer a more specific threat that your deck couldn't normally be configured to do so. Bs are more build around me cards that require the deck to be built in such a way to function properly. And we also have our awe factor, which you will know distinctly when she loses her mind over how cute a card is. And surprisingly, in a Lair of Behemoths, there are surprisingly high numbers of adorable cards in this set. Yeah. So, one more quick thing. If you haven't already, go back and check out all the rest of the set review we've posted so far. The white and the blue cards have already been posted. And we'll be knocking out the rest of them this week so you can get ready for your drafts in Ikoria, which have actually already started as of today. I've opened about 45 packs of Ikoria Arena already, and I'm excited to start building some stuff. But, all of that out of the way, let's jump right into our very first card. What do we have?
Bastion of Remembrance. It's 2 and a black enchantment at uncommon. When Bastion of Remembrance enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Words. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
Yeah, this is a pretty powerful card, and as a reminder, we're strictly looking at these from a limited perspective, so implications in other formats like Standard, Modern, EDH will be mostly disregarded here. But this is an obvious build-around card, just because, well, actually it's not even that, things die a lot in games of Limited, so to be able to stick this on turn 3, create the soldier token, typically effects like this would require a non-token to die to generate an effect like this. But we've seen this on things like Zulaport Cutthroat, Blood Artist. We've seen a bunch of these, but they've always been creature-based. So to see it as an enchantment is actually pretty cool. So, if you have a deck that has a lot of removal spells, or actually that you control, lots of ways you can sacrifice your own creatures, or if you can steal your opponent's creatures and then steal them yourself, you can get a lot of good mileage out of this card. So it does take a bit of build around to really kind of get going to maximize the value. So I think once you've got that, you're in a pretty good position. But this is probably a solid 2.5 though on the right deck. Pretty good stuff, and it's easily going into my Corvold EDH deck. Someone is not too happy about that deck usually. All right, what do we got next here?
Scary Worm.
Scary Worm.
Blitz Leech. It is 5 and a black. It is a creature, leech, at common. It is a 5/2 with flash. When Blitz Leech enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn, and remove all counters from that creature.
This is cool. Having flash on a black creature especially is something rather unique to it. The downside here is obviously the weaker body and the high casting cost, but the ability to shrink something, for 2 points of toughness is pretty significant, especially if it's got a number of counters on it, be it trample counters, vigilance counters, all the keyword counters can go on this. This is pretty impressive stuff here, so it will trade up with a lot of creatures, and in some cases you might be able to get a 2-for-1 by killing off one of their smaller creatures and then blocking something larger and taking it down. So this thing's pretty powerful here. I do like this in the blue-black flash deck. This is a very solid 2 for me, and if you can just, constantly, bounce this back to your hand somehow for a repeated effect, very powerful stuff. Solid 2 here. Next up.
Wolfie! He's doing an AOO. Blood Curdle, 3 and a black. Instant at common, destroy target creature. Put a menace counter on a creature you control.
This is awesome. This is really good stuff. Unconditional removal in black at instant speed will always be high pickable in limited, so this is already a solid 3. And then to give an extra bonus off of the menace counter is also quite good as well. I'm also noticing this wolf has 6 legs.
Him is a good boy.
Him's a good boy because he has 6 legs and just, yeah. This is a solid 3 though. Any black deck unlimited will want to play at least, as many copies as they can get their hands on. This is seriously powerful stuff. Next up, we got a little boot nipper. He's got a mouth, and it's like Alien with the mouth inside the mouth.
He is a 1 and a black creature beast at common. He is a 2/1. When he enters the battlefield with he enters the battlefield with your choice of a death touch counter or a lifelink counter on it.
Yeah, this is actually pretty cool stuff here as well. I prefer this mostly on death touch mode personally. This reminds me of the Grudian from one of the most recent Ravnica sets. It was a 3-mana 2/2 with Death Touch. That was quite powerful here, and being for 2 mana makes it, I think, a little bit better than that card, and that card is already pretty powerful. I don't see how often you'll put this on lifelink mode, unless you're able to mutate onto this with something considerably larger, and then you've got something to work with there. But just baseline, this is a really solid aggressive black creature. I can see it going in a wide variety of decks, be it aggressive with the death touch counter on them, or something a little bit more defensive where you want to be killing things with this guy, and possibly recurring it too. So this is a solid 2, potentially 2.5. This is effectively removal on a stick. So good stuff here. Next up, we got ourselves a little lunch meat poacher. Yeah, poachers are bad.
Bushmeat Poacher, 3 and a black creature human soldier. At common, it is a 2/4. You can pay 1 and tap it and sacrifice another creature. You gain life equal to that creature's toughness and then draw a card.
Yeah, this is actually pretty cool here. Obviously, synergizes really well with the Bastion of Remembrance. Any effects that allow you to steal a creature, like a threatened effect, like an act of treason type effect, go really well with this. Or just any creature that might have been locked down by, let's say, maybe a pacifism effect. Or if they are going to, target some removal on a creature, you can just immediately sacrifice this. It can't sacrifice itself,
Nope.
which is always important to note. So this could easily kind of become, useless if it's all by itself. But the ability on here is pretty powerful here as well. 3-mana 2/4s are also always pretty good. This is going to be at its best in a more mid-rangey black deck, so aggressive decks probably won't want this too much. But the life gain and the card draw is always good here. So I like this guy a lot. This gal, I should say. This is a solid 2 for me in a more mid-rangey attrition-based black deck. Very good stuff. Whoa. What on earth is going on in this card?
There's a buffalo cow thingy in the back.
Buffalo cow things.
Call of the Death Dweller. It's 2 and a black sorcery at uncommon. Return up to 2 target creature cards with total converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a death touch counter on either of them, then put a menace counter on either of them.
Okay, that's pretty solid here. It sucks that in order to get 2 back, you have to have something, them total up to 3 CMC. But just getting 1 back at 3 CMC, I think, is actually really powerful. Then to give it death touch and menace is incredibly powerful here. So it loses a little bit of utility to go any higher on the mana curve, but we do have a couple more expensive reanimation effects, and I believe they are gold, green and black specifically. But this is pretty good stuff here. I like this in a more aggressive black deck that can take advantage of that menace counter, and if need be, the death touch counters as well. So this is pretty solid here. This is a solid 2.5, somewhere in that range, and definitely at best in a aggressive black deck. Cool stuff. Next up, what do we got?
A lizard sloth thing?
I wouldn't even try to make sense of this thing. It has 7 legs. Wait, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, six legs, 1 tail, 5 eyes. This thing's...
Cavern Whisperer.
Cavern Whisperer, that's what it is.
4 and a black creature nightmare. That explains it.
Yep.
At common, it's a 4/4 with menace. Whenever this creature mutates, each opponent discards a card, and you can mutate it for 3 and a black.
Nice. So, discard, especially, random discard is always a thing that we'll see in limited formats, but specific discard, just for your opponent to choose, is certainly a lot more loose, just because they can discard the excess lands that they have, or any ineffective spells. But the ability to do this multiple times, if you can just constantly mutate onto it, especially when this is coming down around turn 4, turn 5, somewhere in that range, depending on how the game is shaping up, your opponent might be running out of cards, and they might be holding on to one key spell like a creature or a piece of removal. And to get it out of their hand with this and then repeat that effect could easily put them out of a game completely. And the body is quite formidable as well, and it also has menace. So this thing is definitely powerful. A better tool in a more attrition-based mid-range black deck, black-green, black-white, something like that. But this is a really powerful uncommon here. Definitely a good top-of-the-curve piece for you. So I'm going to give this a 2.5. This is a very powerful card. Especially, like I said, if you can continuously mutate and just strip your opponent full of resources. Good stuff. Next up, we got more nightmares.
It's a crab spider.
Crab spider.
Chittering Harvester. It is 5 and a black, creature nightmare. Uncommon. It's a 4/6. Whenever this creature mutates, each opponent sacrifices a creature, and you can mutate it for 4 and a black.
Yeah, again, much like the Cavern Whisperer, this thing is at its best in an attrition-based black deck that has plenty of removal, that can snipe other things that might be better sacrifice fodder, like tokens or creatures that have been pacified. So if you can engineer a board state where they've only got 1 or 2 creatures left over and they're both pretty decent targets, to have this come down on whatever turn's going to be and have them sacrifice something, and you have a backup removal to take the other one out, this will swing the game pretty quickly for you. And being a 4/6, this will deal some damage. And if you can, let's say slap it onto a Cavern Whisperer, I don't know how you lose that game. So this is very powerful stuff here as well. Of course, the downside is that in limited games, especially for sealed pre-releases specifically, when you've got a less focused pool, the boards do tend to get a little clogged up, and this might be a lot weaker in a board state where there's just some really ineffective creatures that have been locked down by pacifism or any number of things. Sacrificing that your opponent can choose is certainly always weaker than if you could just choose to kill it yourself. But this is still a very powerful card here. It's a solid 2 for me. And again, mid-range black decks. All right, what do we got next?
Corpse Churn. That is interesting. Oh my gosh, look at
this
the
little dragon is... all right, whatever.
1 and a black. Instant. Common. Put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah, this is pretty cool stuff here. This is effectively black card draw in very big air quotes. We saw a lot of this in Theros Beyond Death with things like Relentless Pursuit that would mill yourself for X cards, and you could choose 2 of them being a land and a creature to put it back in your hand for some very long game attrition-based strategies. And I think this is going to play into that as well, especially if you are reanimating things like we saw with the previous card that brought back the CMC 3 or less. So this is pretty good stuff here, and be able to get something back that they might have killed already is very powerful. And doing this on their end step to get back your Mythic Bomb, put it back in your hand, and recast it on your turn is a pretty solid tempo play, especially. And then if you've got other cards that care about other things in your graveyard, this is pretty considerable here, I think. So it's a solid filler for your deck, and it's not going to be a key piece to it. But effects like this usually do find their way into most black decks. So this is like a 1.5. It's not terribly exciting, but it will get the job done. This next card, however, I freaking love this card.
Dark Bargain.
It's so good.
3 and a black, instant, common. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Dark Bargain deals 2 damage to you.
This could deal 6 damage to me, I wouldn't care. Well, maybe not 6. But we first saw this in Dominaria, which this is the first time it was printed there, so this is obviously a reprint. This card is pretty wild. To pay 3 mana, draw 2, and then, if you do have some graveyard synergies, get the benefit of that by putting the 3rd card into the graveyard. The 2 damage is pretty negligible, even unless you're playing against the most aggressive black decks. I can't see this really being a downside for you, so most of the mid-rangey black decks will want to play a copy or two of this just to keep their deck fueled. Aggressive decks will probably want to stay away from this just because, actually, it's a little bit too high on the curve, so maybe this might go somewhere at the top of an aggressive black deck curve just so they can get just that many cards deeper and find their last few creatures to turn the game their way. So very flexible, I think, and a very solid card. This is a solid 2 for me. I like this one a lot. Yes! More reprints!
Dead Weight. It is 1 black, enchantment aura, common, enchanted creature gets -2/-2.
Yep. The flavor text on this one's kind of foreboding, too. Kelsey the Plague is clearly not trapping this thingy. It's going to trap whatever comes to find this. So we'll just say that Kelsey's going to save this little thing's life. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Deadweight's always been good. We've seen this a number of times originally, all the way back in original Innistrad. This is just good, flat-out removal. Will kill most things early on the curve. Very comparable to Mire's Grasp from Theros Beyond Death, which was a extra mana, but gave you -3/-3. But this is still just as good. I will play this in literally any black deck I can. Good stuff. This is a solid. This is a 2.5 for me. If it was any stronger, it'd definitely be a 3. If it was Mire's Grasp, it would be a 3. But being only -2 makes it just a little bit lower on the scale. Next up, we've got Batty. Did you ever watch what was that movie? What was it? Ferngully, The Last Rainforest with Batty and Robin Williams. Dirgebat. This is not Batty.
No, that's the stuff that Nightmare's made of. 2 and 2 black, creature, bat, obviously, at rare.
Yep,
that's rare. Sorry. It is a 3/3 with flash and flying. Whenever this creature mutates, destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls, and you can mutate it for 4 and 2 black.
Yeah, so this is one of the first instances of a mutate cost being more expensive than the baseline CMC of the creature, which is interesting. We've only got a couple of them in this example. And it's interesting that we're having to pay 6 mana for an effect that typically costs 3 or 4 mana. To kill a planeswalker or a creature at instant speed is typically 3 to 4 mana, varying color combinations. So this is, I'm not sure why they made this cost so much. I honestly don't know.
Flash and the flying, maybe?
I guess, but even still, Hero's Downfall is 1 black at instant speed for destroy target creature or planeswalker. So my inclination here is to have this be the spell that, and this is one of those instances where it's going to test players. Do you play this? Do you wait to mutate this onto something else, or do you use this as the mutate base? So end of their turn, you flash this in, untap, mutate something on top of it, and then start beating down. That might be the better way to go with this. But my inclination is that, this is still a very good card. This is a solid 3 for what it can do, especially at the speed it can do it at. Having that kind of flexibility makes this thing even more powerful. But still very, very good. But like I said, it's going to be a testing card for a lot of players to say, well, do I play this first, or do I play this as the mutation instead of the mutatee? Mutated? It's a 3. Moving on.
Would not like that thing in real life, but on this card, it's cute.
It's cute.
Durable Coil Bug can stay right where it's at.
In the card.
Yep. 1 and a black, creature insect at common. It is a 2/2. You can pay 4 and a black and return Durable Coil Bug from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah,
so this is pretty cool stuff here. As we've said many times before, 2 mana 2/2s are always playable, and 2 mana 2/2s with upside is even better. I don't foresee a world where I'm returning this from my graveyard too often. I think that's cool, though. It's a 1.5. There's not a lot to say about this card. It's cute, and it can come back from the graveyard, so yeah. Moving on.
Oh my goodness, what is she petting?
Something with 6 eyes and 8 legs.
It's so cute. Duskfang Mentor, 2 and a black, creature human cleric at uncommon. It is a 1/3. When Duskfang Mentor enters the battlefield, put a lifelink counter on target non-human creature you control. You can pay 1 and a black and tap it and put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with lifelink.
Nice. I'm surprised this one doesn't give Death Touch, but that's whatever. Much like all the other mentors, we've seen the one that gives flying creatures, or a flying token, and a vigilance token in blue and white respectively. So this one I think is on par with the rest of those. Being a 1/3 already gives it good stats in the early game, and as long as you've got a target for that lifelink counter, you can make a considerably large creature to beat down and gain enough life to really shift the tide of the game your way. And if you have any more that have lifelink, which we've seen a good number in black already, I can see this doing some real damage late into the game as the board sort of kind of grows out of control for you. So obviously this has a little bit of a build around me component, but beyond that, this is a very solid 2 for me. And yeah, the thing it's petting is cute.
So cute.
All right, what do we got next?
Easy Prey. Oh.
Well, to be fair, it's not the little green thing. It's the guy in the middle who's going to be eaten by...
Oh, didn't see the big thing in the back.
Yeah, the definition of bite-sized treat depends on who you ask.
There's always a bigger monster.
Always a bigger monster.
It's 1 and a black instant at uncommon. Destroy target creature with converted mana cost 2 or less. You can cycle it for 2.
Yeah, this is a 2.5 easily. If it could target things with a greater mana cost, if this was a 3 mana cost or less, it would be an absolute 3.5. This would be insane. So the ability to kill early game creatures is fantastic, and then to cycle it away as the game goes on, and you've got less targets because your opponent's casting, 4, 5, and 6 drops. This has utility at any point in the game, so this is a solid 2.5, maybe even a 3, depending on the context of the format. If we're a grindier format where there's lots of big creatures, less valuable. But if there are aggressive decks that can capitalize on these bigger mutate decks, this will be a really key piece of slowing those decks down. So 2.5, possibly jumping to a 3 with the right context of the format.
He's so cute.
All right, what do we got here? It's a giant bird cat.
Sorry, it's creating. Extinction. Let's try that again. Extinction Event. 3 and a black, sorcery, rare. Choose odd or even. Exile each creature with converted mana cost of the chosen value. Sorry, 0 is even.
0 is even. This is cool stuff here. This is we've seen a Wizards really they made a return to 4 mana board wipes. Typically, the last time we really saw this was with Wrath of God way back in, I think it was M12. And from there, Wizards really stepped away from that. They said that 5 was the baseline for destroying all creatures. So to see in more recent times, like Shatter the Sky, I'm forgetting the one from Ixalan that would shoots that exiles all the attacking creatures. But in any case, to see a 4-mana Wrath like this is actually quite powerful, and to be able to pick what essentially mode you're going to exile is also quite powerful here. So this is a pretty good solid 3 for me. Just the ability to choose how you'll sculpt the battlefield after it's resolved is quite powerful, and to give that kind of choice for a Wrath is a significant bonus to a Wrath effect. So solid 3 right here. Mostly mid-range and control decks will want to play this. Potentially more aggressive decks that are paying much of 1 and 2 drops to fire this off as the board gets really clogged up and all of a sudden their board state's empty and theirs is, or their opponent's board state's empty and yours is just full of, little bears. Good stuff. Solid 3. Oh, yeah.
Gloom Pangolin. Pangolin.
Pangolin, yep.
Pangolin. It's 2 and a black creature, Nightmare Pangolin. It's a common, I'm sorry. It's a 1/5.
That's all it is. It's just a 1/5. That's a bunch of flavor text right there. This card is fine. It is a horribly unexciting filler for your deck. It's about as close to a 1 as it can possibly get, unfortunately. You can sideboard this in if you're playing against a very aggressive deck, and I don't know. This card is as adorable as this thing is. It's just not. I'm not feeling this one. Have you ever seen a pangolin in real life?
No.
Yeah. They have 4 legs, but their backs are curved such that they can only walk on their back legs really, and they're hunched over and they just kind of waddle around. They're super adorable. Adorable, yes, but yeah, this is a 1.5. This is not an exciting card. It's a blocker, and that's about it. This guy, on the other hand,
Ew.
oh boy.
Grim Dancer. It's 1 and 2 black creature nightmare, uncommon. It's a 3/3, and when it enters I keep doing that. It enters the battlefield with your choice of 2 different counters on it from among Menace, Death Touch, and Lifelink.
This thing is insane.
Gross.
Yeah, just the flexibility on this card to just fit. This is a Swiss Army knife of a creature, I think. To be able to fit the battlefield however you see fit is just unreal here. This is a solid 3 for me. I can see this being a perfectly defensible pick. Pick one in draft. This will make any black deck, aggressive or not. This thing's very, very powerful. This is a solid 3 for me. Really cool card here. Possibly even standard playable, I think.
Still gross.
Still gross, but powerful.
Oh no!
Do you want to skip this card?
Heartless Act. It's 1 and a black. It's an instant uncommon. Choose 1. Destroy target creature with no counters on it. Remove up to 3 counters from the target creature.
Yeah, so this is good. It's powerful removal.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice that there's a condition on there for creatures that do have counters on them, but to be able to take off lifelink, trample counters, things like that. This has some good flexibility to it. We'll have to see if the decks that are using the when it enters the battlefield put your choice of counter on it. If those really are sort of like the de facto deck to go to in Limited, that'll basically give this thing its final grade, whether it's going to be good or not. But I think this is already on its face, this is very powerful. This is a solid 2.5 for me for the versatility, but a flat 0 on the art because that's not cool, Wizards. Not cool. Moving on.
Hunted Nightmare.
I hope they're hunted by their nightmares.
Seriously.
Yeah.
1 and 2 black creature nightmare rare. 4/5 with menace. When Hunted Nightmare enters the battlefield, target opponent puts a death touch counter on a creature they control.
This thing is wild. It is so rare to see something with this much power on this cheap of a creature that even the death touch counter that goes on something, I honestly don't care. This is coming down so early, and if you can back it up with like dead weight or the CMC 2 or less removal spell, this thing's just going to run away with the game, just flat out. If you can keep the board state under control, there is not a lot your opponent can do to stop you. This is going to go really good in aggressive decks. This is going to go really well in mid-range black decks. This is awesome stuff here. This is a solid 3 for me. This card is insane. Very, very good stuff. All right. What the hell? You've played Bloodborne, right? You've watched me play Bloodborne. This is very amygdala, old one. This is nightmare stuff here. But what do we got here?
Nightmare. Insatiable Hemophage.
Yep.
3 and a black creature nightmare uncommon. It's a 3/3 with death touch. Whenever this creature mutates, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of times this creature has mutated, and you can mutate it for 2 and a black.
Yeah. I will say that the more I look at this art, the more unsettling it gets.
Not liking this particular.
Yeah, not a fan of. Yeah, this is gruesome. But the card itself is quite good. The ability, like a 4-mana 3/3 is a hill giant. That's already playable stats, and to give it death touch, already good stuff. And just the ability to mutate this onto other things. I don't know how much value and mileage you're going to get out of that mutate clause. If you manage to steal, because it scales up, obviously. So you hit for 2, and you hit for 1, you hit for 2, you hit for 3. So it's significant. So if this deals, upwards of 6 points of damage in a game, I think you've done pretty well for yourself. And so having a lot of utility on this thing is quite powerful here. So this is a solid 2.5 for me. I need to see just how good and how much mileage you can get from one mutate card before they just kill the whole stack and you're just like out like 6 creatures or whatever. But this is still very powerful stuff here. 2.5 for me. Definitely more of a mid-rangey black card than anything. Next up, what do we got?
She looks like a bad
somebody I want on my side.
Yep. Lurking Deadeye, 3 and a black creature, human assassin, common, 4/2 with flash. When Lurking Deadeye enters the battlefield, destroy target creature that was dealt damage this turn.
Yeah, so this is a really cool sort of skill tester card. The first time we saw this was, or a card like this that I can remember recently, was in War of the Spark on Vraska's Finisher, which had the same exact text but did not have flash. So what this basically turns all of your small creatures into is removal spells. So if I've got, let's say, if I'm suiciding one of my creatures into your board state, and they're like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to block this thing. They now have to think about Deadeye here. Mm-hmm. You could easily block my 1/1 with your 6/6, but what if
you flash this in?
Yeah, this is lurking in my hand, or on a block that you think that you've got that you can come out on. Let's say you're trying to clear up my board state. You attack with your 6/6 into my 1/1. Well, I can block all day and then flash this thing in and take out whatever you attacked with. So this has got a lot of versatility to it. The only downside is the toughness, but I don't think typically assassins aren't all that bulky. So flavorfully, this is good stuff here. This is a solid 2.5 for me. I really like creatures like this. Like I said, it really makes your opponents rethink combat, and removal on creatures is always good. So good stuff here. Very good stuff. Memory Leak. That looks painful.
A little bit.
Like, that looks genuinely painful.
It's 2 and a black sorcery, common. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from that player's graveyard or hand and exile it. Cycle it for 1.
Yep. So this, again, we looked at the creature earlier that can make your opponent discard cards. Targeted discard in Limited is quite powerful. And that's something that you see. It's a skill tester card as well. So things like Duress that a lot of people will see and just go, oh, this can't be any good in Limited. But it can be if you play on the key turn. So if I know that you have a 6-drop in your deck that can just utterly win a game, I want to play a spell like this the turn before you can cast it. So that I've waited 5 turns. You've drawn your opening 7 plus however many cards you've drawn to that point. That gives me that much more of a chance to hit that card. And the fact that this hits anything is quite powerful as well. And being a late game, dead draw normally, to cycle this away is very powerful. And only having a cycling cost of 1, very, very good stuff. So while this isn't like a 3 or like a slam dunk first pick, this is still very defensible in any black deck. This is a solid 2. So lots of utility here. And again, another one of those sort of skill testing cards to know when to cast it. Next up. Wow.
Mutual Destruction. 1 black sorcery, common. This spell has flash as long as you control a permanent with flash. As an additional cost to this spell, sacrifice a creature and destroy target creature.
This is the best art in the set. This is just like... Yeah, this girl's just like, no F's given.
Yep.
Just, I'm going for it. So this is pretty good stuff here. This is Bone Splinters, which is the same effect without the flash clause. Second creature, destroy target creature. So to see this come back in this kind of variant is even cooler. So if you do have the ability to make little tokens, or if you've stolen an opponent's creature, or you've just got something that's been locked down by pacifism, very, very flexible here and really good stuff. Spells like this are always playable, I think. This is a solid 2, probably a 2.5, just because it is unconditional removal, aside from the creature you must sacrifice. So good stuff here, and I really hope that you don't get too sad when your opponent counters the spell, because you have to sack the creature in addition to paying those costs. So user be warned. Solid 2. Oh yeah. Here we go.
Mythos of Nethroi?
Nethroi, yeah, Nethroi.
Nethroi. Okay. 2 and a black instant rare. Destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature or if... Sorry. Let me try that again. That was a little bit... Whoa.
This is super weird wording, I will admit.
Destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature or if green-white was spent to cast this spell.
Yeah, so it took me 5 times to figure out what this... Like, I know what this card does, but the way it's worded told me I was wrong. So if you spend 2 and a black, you can kill a creature. But if you spend black, white, green, you can destroy any non-land permanent. It's that simple. I don't know who decided the wording on this was like this, but you're dumb. It just doesn't make any sense like this. But anyway, this is a solid 3.5. This is just good, straight-up removal. Any black deck will want to be able to play this. If you're playing Obzon colors, black, green, white, of course you're going to play this. Unconditional removal and typically to be able to hit anything is just insane for limited. So this is a solid 3.5. Of interest, the artist who did this piece, Seb McKinnon, did the whole Mythos cycle and also Essence Scatter. He recently was auctioning off the originals, like the original paintings that he did that were done with pumice and acrylic. So he was doing like these super old school style. The combined total of the 6 paintings that he sold, $61,000.
Goodness.
Yeah. To be fair, Seb McKinnon is a rock star of an artist. Everything he does is just aces. So, aside. So, yeah, 3.5. This card is insane. Seb McKinnon, great artist. Yeah. Anyway. I was totally kidding. So there's a Nightsquad Commando. I jokingly told her there wasn't a Nightsquad.
I asked if we saw the day squad, and I was like, well, where's the night squad? And he said chillin' in black. And he was like, no, just kidding, there's not one.
I really hope that there is a mid-afternoon squad commando in red.
Nightsquad Commando, 2 and a black creature, human soldier, common. It is 2/3, and when it enters the battlefield, if you attacked this turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token.
Yeah. Alright, my own practical jokes aside, I had no idea this card was in this set. I completely forgot about it. This is a pretty cool card here. The effect here is Raid, which was a mechanic we first saw in Khans of Tarkir, which basically said, if you attack the creature this turn, this creature enters the battlefield and does X. Mm-hmm. So this is a cool kind of reworking of that mechanic without actually having to use the keyword on there. I like when Magic does this. That being said, this is obviously a more aggressive black card. I can see this going into a more mid-rangey shell if you do need the bodies to sort of hold down the board, especially if you have the enchantments, the Remembrance, Bastion of Remembrance. This gives you a lot of fodder for that. So that being said, it's a perfectly serviceable card. It's a solid 2, and I think a lot better in more aggressive black decks where you can get, 2 for the price of 1 effectively. So good stuff here. Come on, mid-afternoon squad. Mid-afternoon. That's all I'm asking for now.
Serrated Scorpion. It's 1 black. It's a creature. Scorpion. Common 1/2. When it dies, it deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life.
This thing is goofy. So I'm of 2 minds on this card.
That is cute.
It is quite cute. I wouldn't say cuddly, but I could appreciate from a distance of, like, let's say 15 feet.
Like the coil bug.
Like the coil bug, yeah. So it's a good early game attacker, and at some point your opponent is going to have to block this, at which point it's going to shock them again. So I can see this thing being good for upwards of 5 points of damage in a game, which is nothing to scoff at. And on the flip side, this is also decent in the late game, because if they're at a low life total and you're just trying to script together a few more points of damage and you play this, they look at that and go, oh crap, I can't kill this thing now. So this plays an interesting dual role in the game. So it's got some flexibility, and I do like that. That being said, it is pretty underwhelming otherwise. Barely a 2. I'm going to give this a niche little 1.75. There you go. I am serrated on this one.
Suffocating Fumes. That is a frightening card.
This is cool though, yeah.
2 and a black, instant, common. Creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn, or you can cycle it for 2.
Yeah, so typically we see effects like this that hit every creature on their board at sorcery speed. I don't know why that happens to be the case. That's just how things go. But effects like this are pretty commonplace in Magic here, and so to be at instant speed and hit some early game creatures, there aren't a whole lot of X1s though, 1 toughness creatures in this set, which makes this thing a little bit dubious at best. But if you can engineer a board state where you're, a more mid-range deck against their aggro deck, and you can put some blocks together, shrink their team with the fumes, and then win combat that way, it's a pretty flexible card. And just like we saw with so many blue cards that have cycling, if the effect is, not ideal at what point of the game you're in, you can just get a free card out of this effectively by cycling it away. So lots of versatility here. I like good flexibility on cards like this. This is a solid 2 just because the effect is rather puny. But, yeah. These are just fumes, not some sort of noxious gas cloud. All right.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, she wants to help her buddy.
Unbreakable Bond. 4 and a black, sorcery, uncommon. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a lifelink counter on it. I like this.
Wow. So I'm noticing in this art that she is missing part of her right arm. And she is doing everything she can to help her little bear raccoon badger of doom. I don't know. But this is a really good reanimation effect. Usually 5 mana is the benchmark for reanimation that is not rare. And to get a lifelink counter especially is just huge. So if you can get something back that is huge, this is pretty good stuff here because, usually your opponent only has so many removal spells. And if you can exhaust all of them and then bring back your one big kahuna, it's good stuff. So this is a 2.5, I want to say. Having this much flexibility on a card, like I mentioned, reanimation effects are powerful in Limited, especially if you've got a good ETB effect. So I like this card a lot. I'm going to give this one a 2.5. Very, very cool stuff.
It's like toothless.
What is going on?
Looks like the big guy was going to eat the little guy, and then the little guy was like, just kidding.
Like,
Fangs.
nope, JK, bro.
Unexpected Fangs. 1 and a black, instant, common. Put a +1/+1 counter and a lifelink counter on target creature.
Yeah, so this is pretty cool stuff as far as combat goes. Combat tricks go in black. Typically, we just see a power or toughness bonus with usually like death touch until the end of turn, but a +1/+1 counter and then lifelink on something is pretty good stuff. So I like that I can use this both as a defensive play, an offensive play, or just an end of turn. I'm going to make my creature just a little bit stronger. And then we have those mentor creatures that can they can just make this thing, whatever we put it on, even bigger. So this has got some cool flexibility. And I like this as it lessens the complexity of combat, by saying, well, this thing now has +3/+3. It took X number of damage this turn. Well, is it dead? I don't know. This is a much cleaner way to do combat tricks, and I wonder if this might be the status quo moving forward for combat tricks. Who knows? Or if we see like a mix of buffs and actual static counters on them, I'd be cool with that too. But this is good stuff here. This is a 1.5 for me. The effect is marginal at best. But I think your more aggressive black decks will definitely take advantage of this one more than anything else. All right. What?
Unlikely
on
Aid.
earth?
It's so pretty. 1 and a black, instant, common. Target creature gets +2/+0 and gains indestructible until end of turn.
Wow. I appreciate you not letting me fall to my death in the acid bogs. Now can you let me down? So this I like a lot more than something like Unexpected Fangs, even though we don't get a permanent boost to it. The ability to go indestructible is pretty significant here. So if you can block with something that seemingly would get killed in combat, trade with their creature, and then be able to untap and attack again, is pretty powerful here. So this is a solid 2 for me. This can also be used in response to removal effects. So there's a lot of utility to this card that I quite like here, and the art is pretty awesome. I'm going to call this thing Norbert. Moving on. Yeah!
Void Beckoner. 6 and 2 black. Creature Nightmare Horror. Aren't those kind of the same thing? It's an uncommon 8/8 with Death Touch. You can cycle it for 2 and a black. When you cycle Void Beckoner, put a Death Touch counter on target creature you control.
This thing is nuts. This is such a massive body. I don't know how likely you're going to cast this one all that often. Mm-hmm. There's a minor amount of acceleration in green that you can possibly pull this off with. But my thinking with this card is that you cycle this immediately as soon as you can, get the Death Touch counter, kill something of theirs, and then reanimate this thing on turn 5 and just have a massive body to go ready to go tangle with something else. So that all being said, the downside is that you've got to have that combination of cards, because 8 mana is a lot. But if you do need a finisher and you are in a slower black deck, black, blue, black, white, what have you, this could be a decent way to finish a game. So 1.5 to 2, depending on your configuration of the deck. I would hope that if I'm drafting a black control deck that wants something like this, I have a better finisher than this, but this is serviceable at least. All right, and next up, got these old goobers here.
Whisper Squad. 1 black creature, human soldier, common. It's a 1/1. You can pay 1 and a black, search your library for a card named Whisper Squad, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library.
This is the ultimate build-around card for drafts. So typically, like, cards like this remind me of things like Persistent Petitioners, or I'm forgetting the Cleric, the black 1-drop that you could have any number of in your deck. So, but basically, there are some cards that you can play any number of in your deck. They break the 4-of rule, which is pretty cool. But in Sealed and Draft, you can do that. So if I draft 8 copies of this, my squad is huge, and I will just consistently, on your end step, go get more of the squad, go get more of the squad. And the fact that they're humans is pretty wild as well, so they can go with the anthem effects that we've seen. Bastion of Remembrance does some wicked things with this too. Wicked things with this card. This is a massive build around me. I would not take this unless I can get 3 or 4 copies of this. And even then, it's just a 1/1. It's not very good. So only build around this if you can, and just not a very good card otherwise. And I believe for our last black card...
It's so pretty!
Yeah.
Oh, it's so purpley. Zagoth Mamba.
Kobe, R.I.P. He was the Mamba.
1 black creature, Nightmare Snake, uncommon. It's a 1/1. Whenever this creature mutates, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn.
Yeah, I like this. This is really cool because I think I could be wrong. I think this is the only instance of a card that has a mutate clause that cannot itself mutate onto something else. So I like this sort of thematic instance of this is the bottom of the food chain, and it just gets bigger. The -2/-2 is actually pretty cool as well. It's like a deadweight effect essentially here. The only downside is that I would probably want to play this early in an aggressive deck and then immediately find something to mutate onto this. Otherwise, you're probably losing a lot of value on it. And just the ability to just do this whenever you can and consistently trigger this ability is pretty good stuff here. So I'm going to call it a 2. I think it might be weaker, actually, but baseline right now, my inclination said this is as a 2 and a very good inclusion in an aggressive black deck that has a little bit of utility through mutation. So we'll see on this one. And that is our last black card. We are churning through this set like a Zagoth Mamba.
It's just a snake.
It's just a snake. A many-eyed snake.
Whose venom turns your blood to smoke.
Yeah, but still, just a snake. So, don't forget, down in the comments, don't forget to tell us what your favorite black cards are. What are you expecting to open up in draft? What are you most excited to build in standard? Are there any cards that really got your excitement building here? And of course, don't forget to go check out the other videos for the Ikoria Limited set review over the next couple of days here as well. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Ring the bell. All those horribly self-aggrandizing things that I hate to have to say, but that's how things work here on the YouTubes. So, final word to Sam?
Nope.
It's just a snake. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back soon.